appreciate our families and community joining us tonight to learn about our middle school math adoption and the two programs that we're considering for use in our classrooms next year. My name is Brooke O'Neill, and I am the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. And we're really excited about this process. You're going to learn a little bit about it's rigorous, it takes us over a year. So, we're going to share a little bit about the process that we go through and how we choose the curriculum and how we got to this point. But first, I do want to make a point to thank our school board because it is our school board who gets to approve the purchase of the new materials. And we try and purchase with the state adoption cycle, which is a new content area every 7 years. So this year, the content area that we're adopting is math. Next year, it will be science. So that is thanks to our school board. So want to give them a shout out. Want to point out tonight what we're going to do. As I mentioned, you're going to hear about our adoption process, and then you're going to get to hear from the two publishers from the programs that we are considering for use in classrooms next year. You're going to have a chance. Each publisher will speak about 20 minutes, and then we'll have 10 minutes for question and answer. We encourage you to ask questions. You can use the Q&A feature at the bottom. You can type in your questions. Some of your questions we will answer live, and some of them we might answer to you individually, just depending on the nature of the question. And then we will close by 7:30 with next steps, so you can see the next steps in the process. I do want to mention we started with 10 programs that we were considering, and now we're down to 2. So this is a very exciting time. I'm going to turn it over to Rochelle to tell you more.
Thank you. My name is Rochelle Zimmerman. You'll see my name listed down at the bottom of your screen. But I wanted to do another shout out to all of the teachers. You might recognize a few names from each of our middle schools. Alice Ott, Floyd Light, and Ron Russell all have representation on our adoption team. And these are full-time teachers who have taken on extra time and obligations to put their energy into our adopting the next curriculum. Brooke O'Neill, you heard from just a moment ago. She's our Director of Curriculum and Instruction. In a moment, you'll hear from Carrie Foster, our Online Curriculum Integration Coordinator, and Elise is going to be helping us with some of our Q&A, and she might jump on later on. She's our Assistant Director title of Programs.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie Foster, and I am the Online Curriculum Integration Coordinator here in David Douglas. So this is our math adoption timeline. As Brooke said, it takes us over a year to go through an adoption process. We have a very thorough adoption process. The K-12 Math Adoption Committee was formed last spring. These are teachers who volunteered to be on the committee knowing the very heavy time commitment. So this year-long time commitment starts over the summer with professional learning through a book study. The book the committee engaged in, Choosing to See, set the foundation for helping all students unearth the potential to be powerful mathematical thinkers. So gathering student voice is a very important part of our adoption process. In the fall, we conducted a survey of students asking what they like about math and what helps them learn math. Also in the fall, the committee started to participate in anti-racist, anti-bias trainings, which continue throughout the full adoption process. The committee also worked to develop 6 priorities based on student survey data, our district Freedom Dream number 1, developed by our staff of color and professional learning. The committee then reviewed the highest scored curriculum vetted and approved by the Oregon Department of Education. They ranked their top 4 curriculum, and we invited those publishers to present in person. Then the committee narrowed down to 2 curriculum for piloting. So we are starting to pilot the lessons in classrooms and gather feedback from students, teachers, and the community. In April, the committee will review student, teacher, and community data collected during the pilot, as well as their own scores of each curriculum. A final recommendation will be presented to the board in April. The committee members have engaged in over 35 hours of synchronous and asynchronous work for this adoption thus far, and there's a lot more to come. So students are at the very center of our work. We spent time in the fall gathering student survey input via a survey across all grade levels and surveyed nearly 3,700 students. Additionally, we conducted student empathy interviews. Empathy interviews allowed us to dig deeper into students' math experiences and helped us gain an understanding as to what our students' needs are and how we can best support them in learning math. From these two sources, we learned students prefer engaging with multiple modes of math learning. Students value learning with individual and self-paced accommodations, such as visuals, more time to think, and practice opportunities. Students want to take time want time to practice for proficiency. Students prefer opportunities to interact meaningfully with peers and to receive feedback. And students value hearing their classmates' math ideas in class. So all of our learning and feedback narrowed it down to these 6 priorities that you see here. These include student representation in math, tasks, and activities, learning activities that enable students to demonstrate their understanding in various ways, and provides feedback to students to develop their math skills. Our teachers are just starting the process of piloting and trying out lessons to see the degree to which these priorities are embedded in the curriculum. You will see these priorities again in the community survey. We invite you to tell us the most important priorities for your student to succeed. Your feedback will be a very important consideration in for our community or for our committee. So with that, I will turn it over to Rochelle to tell you more about the role that you play.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for being here tonight. You have a really important role, and we kind of broke it down into 2 main components. Beyond tonight's presentation from each publisher, there is further information and demo account access that I encourage you and your students to play around with, explore. After reviewing the publisher information, we're asking for your opinion on about a 3-minute survey, which is also going to be found on the district website, and I'll be showing that in just a minute. Your feedback is really important. We use it as a part of our decision-making process to help us really make a well-rounded choice going forward. I really encourage you to ask questions tonight during this session, but also in the next coming weeks. If you have further questions, my email is in Parent Square. My email is on the screen, and you're also welcome to reach out to any staff member and we can help you find access to me. So with that, let's talk about the website. On the main page of the district website, you'll see the math adoption image occur in this image reel on the main page. Clicking on the community input for math adoption link will bring you to a page where you can learn more about Eureka Math Squared and iReady, the 2 programs you're going to hear about tonight. When you click on that page, you'll see a section dedicated to middle school. You'll also see the elementary and high school components as well, but for tonight, we'll just focus on middle school. Eureka Math and iReady have both supplied web links for you to explore and student demo accounts at certain grade levels. Scrolling down a little bit further will take you to the middle school input survey, where we're asking for your community feedback. It has been translated into our top 5 languages, as you can see here on this screenshot. When you click on the survey, you can access the specific language that you might need in order to complete the rest of that survey. That brings us to our first publisher.
Okay, and I am excited to welcome Curriculum Associates as the publisher. The program we are considering is iReady, and I'm going to turn it over to Robin to introduce our speaker, Joe, in just a moment. Just want to remind our family and community members to please ask questions if you hear something during the presentation using the Q&A feature down below. And just a special request to Robin and Joe, we have interpretation rooms available. So if we can talk a little slower to allow our interpreters the time to translate, that would be very much appreciated. So with that, I will turn it over to Robin.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us, David Douglas School District community. We're so happy to be here and share our iReady Classroom Mathematics Oregon Edition program with you. Joe Kuprak will be the one that will be sharing all the information. I will be available via chat to help answer questions along with your administration. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy and learn more about our program.
Fantastic. Thank you, Robin. Is the sound okay? Or am I?
Oh, we can hear you, Joe. Sounds great.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry, I was nodding, Joe. I didn't know if you'd saw me.
Nope, that's perfect. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and let's take this away. All right. So a couple of things. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing and turn off a few things in the background just so that we're not interrupted during this. Perfect. That is better. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in then. First, as Robin said, welcome. As we have this conversation, the first thing I want you to know is that this is a comprehensive offering from Curriculum Associates. And what I mean by that is it includes three major components. It includes the full iReady assessment suite. At the center, obviously, is the student work text. That's where the majority of the learning takes place. And then finally, we'll talk about some digital pieces and that digital offering and what that looks like. So as we kind of walk through, we'll talk a little bit about all three of these pieces, how they fit together and how they inform instruction. Let's start with the diagnostic. The first thing to know about the diagnostic is that it is an adaptive K-12 assessment, which means every student is assessed in 4 domain areas along the kindergarten through 12th grade continuum. The assessment items match the different digital assessment types. So there are drag and drop, there are short answer, fill in, there are multiple choice, there are multiple inline select. And what it's designed to do on the left is to inform teachers. It identifies student areas of strength and areas of need. It connects then teachers directly to information and materials that will allow them to support students, identifying prerequisite knowledge, maybe unfinished learning, gaps, areas where students have strength. What it is not is an assessment that provides grades or determines grade level placement. It is truly designed to inform teachers, not to replace teachers. Teachers are still assessing students. They're teaching, they're grading. It's just one more piece of information trying to assist teachers with understanding where students are. All right, let's move then on to the centerpiece, the core of what we're talking about, which is the student all-inclusive work text. When you think about instruction, this includes then all of the in-class assessment problems and information, all of the practice and apply problems and additional information. It also includes family letters so that families can see what it is that we're doing, how it might be a little different in the classroom than maybe how families or parents learn the mathematics. And then there is a glossary so that students have the opportunity to see examples and make connections back to that work that we're talking about. It is a true all-inclusive text, which then gets us to the digital experience. The entire course can be taught from the work text. If a teacher so chooses, they could have students get into their student journaled write-in text. They could begin teaching using their teacher's guide with full teacher support and they can teach everything from that print resource. But there is also a digital experience. And students and families have access then to everything from a single login. This is where students will access that diagnostic we talked about. This is where anything the teacher assigns, digital practice, parallel interactive lessons, lesson quizzes in a digital format, everything's accessed here. And in the upper corner, you see the Family Center. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But down across the bottom, in addition to whatever the teacher has assigned, the student also has access to their student bookshelf, virtual manipulatives, and engaging learning games. So instead of playing Fortnite or doing something else, they can work and learn some mathematics, gain some additional fluency in mathematics. So let's talk about each of those very quickly. First, the bookshelf. It gives students access to their grade book, and if the teacher assigns a different grade level as well, English and Spanish, where they can access those books in a digital format. So if a student ends up in a place where they don't have access to their physical book, they can access it virtually, they can take notes, they can highlight, they have the full access, including virtual manipulatives and tools at point of use. When we're talking about those virtual manipulatives and tools, we're talking about geometry, drawing tools where students can actually rotate and reflect objects and materials. They have access to a scientific calculator. They have a lot of different materials and resources that can enhance the learning and support what's happening in the classroom, and those learning games that I mentioned. So the learning games are going to be grade level appropriate. And then as students begin playing the games at a level that's appropriate, they unlock different, more advanced levels so that they can practice fraction skills or signed numbers or decimals, fractions, whatever that happens to be, so that they can support their learning in a game way that allows them to enjoy learning mathematics. All right, it was already mentioned that you do have access to everything. So as family and community members, you can actually go in and see the grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8 experience. You can see what the items and that information is like. But let's actually dig in just a little bit deeper into what is the power behind iReady Classroom Mathematics. And the first thing that I want you to know is that the lessons span approximately a week for each lesson, where the lesson starts with a session called Explore, where students are reminded of prerequisites, giving teachers another opportunity to identify unfinished learning, but it's a bridge day so that students can make connections. The majority of the lesson are what we call develop sessions, like the page that you see on the right. And up top, you notice that there are 4 blue squares and 1 white square. That tells me that I am in the 4th day of this particular lesson. That's the develop session that I'm looking at. But every day of instruction is built around a powerful problem. And then once students build that understanding through those develop days, there's a refine day, allowing teachers to fully differentiate to make sure that students are making and mastering those connections and building that grade level understanding of the standards. Now, in this develop page that you're looking at, and I know it's a little small to look at, but I just want to point out that there's a lot of space on the page. There's information that students would need to pull from those flyers or those store sales flyers, or in some cases, table information. The way that students learn in the real world, where they have to pull information from different sources, is replicated on the pages. And then we want to honor what it is that students do. As the lesson progresses, we use an instructional framework called Try, Discuss, Connect. There's a lot of conversation about the rigor of mathematics, that students are learning application, that they are gaining fluency and that conceptual understanding every single day to build deep mathematical understanding. That's what the Try, Discuss, Connect instructional framework does. It allows students first to make sense of a problem, then to attempt the problem, to connect to it, applying whatever learning or level of understanding they have to the problem, knowing that this is part of a learning continuum, so they have some understanding, but it allows classes to generate multiple models where now the teacher gets to apply their expertise as guidance in the book, again, lets them know which models they want to look for and pull forth as part of that classroom conversation. But it really does allow every student to enter into a problem and then build that understanding from there, honoring student work and allowing those multiple models to come into play. It is built then around a discourse-driven classroom. And what that means is, as students begin having conversations, making connections between those different models, they're realizing that they are not different solutions, but just different strategies, different ways to solve the same problem. And again, the teacher's professionalism and expertise allows those connections to take place as students are explaining their thinking and being able to explain why they're doing and what it is that they're doing, not just memorizing something in a rote way, because as our memory fades and we forget multiplication tables, it's important that we have something to fall back on so that we can actually understand and then recreate some of those models and solutions later on. That's the power behind this learning. When we talk then about students connecting to the mathematics, it's about having rich opportunities for students either to see themselves in the learning or to see the world around them, not just through the problems that we pose, but also through the practice problems and the variety of different assessment and practice types that we include that are replicating what students are going to see on our state assessment. So on a daily basis, they have an opportunity to reinforce and to be able to apply their learning in a lot of different ways that will match the expectation of the standards and consequently the expectation of the assessment that they're gearing up for. That includes things like our authentic STEM stories, where they'll be able to hear from authentic authors with stories that they've created, where they get to see the mathematics that they're learning coming to life in these graphic novels, or the updated real world connections, which are current, where again, students are able to see themselves or the world around them, or the occupations and careers that they may be looking towards or thinking about in their future. Which gets us then to what is practice and what does that look like? So a couple of things. First off, every lesson will have apply problems, and again, with a variety of different contexts that actually match that level of rigor and expectation. Those are the blue topped apply problems, which are part of the lesson. There are additional practice pages that can be used in class or as homework. There are fluency and skill practice pages, and then there are a lot of ongoing opportunities for unit and lesson level practice throughout the series. I mentioned the refine session, the refine day of the lesson. That's another opportunity for students to apply learning while they're still in class, where they have the support of their classmates and their teacher as they're making those deep connections and working through. All of those are print options, but there are different parallel, same DOK levels, depth of knowledge, DOK levels, similar problems, but different. So they're assessing the same thing with different problem sets through our digital interactive practice or the learning games or parallel lessons to what's happening in the classroom. So if a student just needs another walk through the lesson, they actually have an engaging interactive lesson that they could take, or a student who misses class would be able to take a lesson then where they're engaging with that digital environment receiving the same feedback that they would have received in the classroom had they been there. Not designed to replace the teacher, but to support what's happening in the classroom. Let's talk a little bit about that personalized learning. There is an automated personalized learning pathway that diagnostic, that K-12 adaptive diagnostic we spoke of at the beginning, it creates an individual learning pathway. So as it identifies those areas of greatest need, it serves up lessons that are designed for a student to take about 1 or 2 lessons a week, about 45 minutes total a week, where they're actually working again in those interactive lessons, receiving that feedback, supporting what's happening in the classroom, filling in some of those unfinished learning or some of those gaps in that student understanding so that they're able to be more successful in that classroom environment. And for students that don't have those gaps, it will actually move and extend and allow them to receive instruction at the level that they need, again, supporting what the teacher is doing in class. All right, as family members, as community members, what is it that you can do to assist with what's happening in the classroom? Well, a couple of things. First off, in that family center from that student login, in that family center, what you will find are background videos for every unit describing what's happening in that unit, what learning is expected, how that learning is going to take place, and why. It's providing some of those connections. So those of us who haven't been in the classroom for a period of time, or maybe learned in a different way, to be able to understand what's happening in the classroom. There are developed session videos also under My Videos in that family center that provide every developed session. And remember, that's the bulk of the lesson, those developed sessions. It is a walkthrough of each one of those developed lessons so that, again, a way to replicate what probably happened in class in a video environment, and then the family letters, providing the context for every lesson. What are we doing, and what can you do at home as an activity that might support that learning that takes place in the classroom? The unit flow and video I mentioned in the family resources. And then in that family center, there is a link to additional resources, frequently asked questions, materials, resources that you can use, a lot of family support, community support, information that you can use to help your learner outside of the classroom, or to help you understand exactly what's happening within that classroom construct. All right, that gets us to the question and answer portion. And so at this point, I'm gonna slow down and stop and ask what questions have shown up that we need to address.
I don't see any questions yet, but we'll give some time for our attendees to see if they have any questions they want to ask.
And was my pacing okay? Too fast? Were the interpreters able to keep up?
Ivy, can you check with our interpreters?
Yes, give me 1 second. Young, how is the pace?
Okay.
Okay. I think the pace was good, but I'll continue to check. Thank you, Joseph.
Sure.
Thank you. And it doesn't look like we have any questions yet from our attendees, but Joe, you still have a little more time if there's anything else you would want to share, if there's anything extra, or if not, you can let us know that too.
Sure. I will just say for family and community members, please access our site. don't truly know how things function, how they work until you go in and kick the tires. You wouldn't buy a car without test driving. So please, we welcome you to come in, to try everything, to look at what the assessments look like, the item types, what the instruction is, the resources that are there. Click around. You can't break it. It's designed for you to come in and actually play and experience, and that's the best way. And if you want to bring your child in to your young adult in to experience and play around with some of those things, they will have those experiences in school as well. But that can help with that conversation as you kind of explore it together and kind of see what things look like. So.
Thank you, Joe. Families, if you have any questions, feel free to add them to the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. One thing that I thought of, Joe, I don't know if you have something that you could show us, student engagement and interest in mathematics at the middle school level becomes a much bigger topic, especially as our students get a little older. And so I'm wondering if you might be able to speak to how does iReady differ from middle school to elementary, since you are a K-8 platform? And then it looks like we'll have one question in the chat.
So a couple of things. The level of complexity and interest of the problems is relevant to students. The example we looked at was buying guitars, and it was a conversation about comparing different stores, different prices. It's about providing a relative construct or problem, something that is engaging and interesting to middle school students, knowing that elementary students would have a different level of interest and a different level of reading and understanding and mathematical sophistication, if you will. So it's about making sure that the problems are relevant to the group and the age that we're looking at. But it's also about honoring student thought and processes. Too many times in a middle school math class, the students are shown one model or one way to solve, and then every student in class is asked to solve the problem that way. Some of our students don't understand that particular method. By allowing and honoring students' thought process, knowing that they are thinking, that they are middle school students with that level of history and experience, that they've been in school for a number of years and have gained some understanding, we ask them to enter the problem at a level that makes sense to them, in a way that makes sense to them, which gives the teacher then insight into who those students are. So a couple of things. Sometimes that lack of interest is because the problems are not engaging, they're boring, they don't have something that connects to a middle school student. We want to make sure that that doesn't happen. And the other issue we run into in middle school is sometimes that unfinished learning year over year over year catches up, and students aren't connecting in math class because they don't understand some of those foundational skills. And so a couple of things taking place. The diagnostic assessment, identifying some of those gaps, the personalized learning pathway, providing an opportunity for students to fill some of those gaps, and then an instruction concept that's designed to honor all of those levels and then allow the teacher to begin making some of those connections. All of those put together make for the middle school powerful experience for our students.
Thank you for answering that.
Thank you for asking. That was a great question.
That was a great question. And Ivy, there is lots going on in the chat. Does that have to do with our content, our math content?
No, but thank you for checking, Brooke. We're just entering instructions for families to join the interpretation rooms if they need it.
Okay, great. If there's no other questions, because I know we still have a couple minutes before our next presenters come on. Michelle, maybe, I don't know if we want to go back to the web. Oh.
Very quickly, I would just add this. While we're talking about multiple languages, those family letters that I mentioned in the English book, they are for every single lesson. They're in the English book in English, in the Spanish book in Spanish, but we also have them available in multiple languages in that family center. So there is a drop-down menu so that families can actually see those in multiple languages. So that's a powerful tool as well.
Great.
Will families be able to see that from the side of a demo account? I'm wondering if they'll be able to do any language toggling from the demo account.
They should be able to. So as they log into the student and family experience, when they go to the bookshelf and then go to the resources, the family resources, then they'll have that drop down, so they'll be able to choose the language and then pull those family letters up in the appropriate language.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Robin. And maybe towards the end, Rochelle, we can go back and re-show what's accessible on our website. Again, maybe it might make more sense now that you've been able to see the program and what's available to everybody. So we definitely appreciate Joe and Robin for being here, for your time, for sharing your program with us, and for allowing us to pilot. And I see Rochelle is back on our webpage, so I'm going to let you talk about some of the tools again.
Beautiful. Thank you. As Joe and Robin outlined, families and community members, we really encourage you to visit our David Douglas website. Let me back up one more slide here. On our main webpage, you'll find the screen roller, and you can click on the community input page specifically for math. By doing that, you saw me show earlier, we have a Eureka Math Squared component and we have an iReady component. And you can see the login information for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade to preview those student-based demo accounts. This is also where you'll later on find the community input survey, which we would love your feedback on. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that again. Okay, I believe our next two guests are on, so maybe we're ready to move forward. Again, thank you, Robin. Thank you, Joe. We appreciate you being here this evening with us.
Thank you
so much.
Hey, the next program we are considering, the publisher is Great Minds, and the program is Eureka Math Squared. And tonight we have, I'm going to open the floor to Michael Kinsler, who's going to introduce our guest speaker. And then we will move forward with 20 minutes to present Great Minds and then 10 minutes for question and answer.
And it looked like Carrie Thornton, you were on. I didn't see Michael join quite yet, but Carrie, welcome.
I'm here. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Yes, now we see you. I thought I saw your name there.
I just had to click on a different screen. Sorry about that. Yeah. Hi, you guys. Good evening.
Good evening. One of you should have screen sharing rights here in just a moment, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing as you introduce yourselves.
Yeah. And hi. Good evening, everybody, community, all that. My name is Michael, and I am your local person, meaning I live in up here in the Northwest Washington, but my family's from Oregon. Family, I'm a former teacher, taught mathematics at middle school and then elementary, and I'm joined by my colleague, Carrie Thornton, who is also on the screen, and Carrie, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Carrie. I'm also from the Seattle area. I am an implementation leader with Eureka Math Squared, and essentially what that means is I partner with schools, with teachers, with leaders all over the country, mostly the Western region, and make sure that they have everything they need to have a successful implementation. So I am a resource to the schools when they adopt Eureka Math Squared.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. I just want to remind you both, Carrie and Michael, we are interpreting for our top 5 languages live. So if you can just monitor your pacing a little bit to accommodate for accurate interpretation, that would be delightful. And it's your turn to screen share whenever you're ready.
All right, hopefully everybody, can you see my screen?
We can.
Yay! So we created, my name again is Michael, and I want to talk to you, introduce you to Eureka Math Squared this evening. And Eureka Math Squared is our brand new resource. Particularly tonight, we're going to talk about 6-8, and we created a community landing page for you, so you could review and see our resources. So Carrie, my colleague, is going to put that in the chat for you, and it'll take you directly right to the landing page right now, so you can see as I kind of talk through some of the resources this evening. So hopefully you got that in the chat. Thank you, Carrie. So Eureka Math Squared, I think one of the ways we've been talking about it with districts and getting a lot of feedback across the country is talking about accessibility, readability, and even teachability. But those are some of the key points that when people are looking at Eureka Math, we want to be able to support students with being able to access the materials. So we have this, for the one you're looking at tonight, it's going to be our Oregon edition for 6-8. One of the things that is really important to us is building deep knowledge, conceptual understanding, so that students can take that mathematics to help prepare more for college, career, and beyond, not just for 6-8, but you'll see the support that we provide for the students is really building that capacity. So help them with advanced mathematics and then even beyond the math itself. As far as the student materials this evening, when you log on, you're going to have access to our modules here for grades 6, 7, and 8, module 1. So it'll give you a good feel. You're going to see there's one book that the students will have. It's called the Learn Book. So one write-in edition. And that Learn Book is actually going to contain the lesson pages. This will help support students in the guided or the directed part of the lesson. It's going to provide that independent practice. And one of the things that's to know about our curriculum is that when the practice problems are in the lesson, they always start out typically from very simple problems, and then we lead into more complex problems as the student will move through the practice. And that is intentional to build students' confidence in the ability, so when they get the application problems, they will have had a nice foundation to support the students. The other part, you'll see exit tickets in the student edition. When we open that in a minute, I'll show you what that looks like, but it's brief, just we call it a formative assessment. What that really means is, as a teacher, I'm thinking back when I was teaching with my students, I always wanted to know, what does that target look like? What do I know? If I'm going to check my students, it's like, did they understand this or not? I want to catch that before we move through the activity. I want to be able to support the students in the moment that they need it. And then, of course, my favorite personal part as a parent, and I think most of us, on this call, this is community, so I'm probably talking to my parent audience here, is the recap at 6-8. And I love the recap. We get a lot of feedback across the country about recap because what it is, it provides an example for students. If you have that student, when they go home, sure, they're with Mr. K during the lesson itself, but then there's always that moment when they go home and it's like, no, what was I taught today? And recap actually has stepped out solutions to help, like, what did I do? It'll show examples of exactly the types of problems they experience in the classroom. So, Carrie, do you have anything to add there to that?
No, I love the recap because it shows parents and students exactly what it was that they learned, because when they leave your side, they may remember bits and pieces of it, but it really gives this beautiful illustration of here's the work that we did today and the strategies that we use. And again, that's helpful for both parents and students.
And so we have examples on the landing page here, so you can actually download yourself and be able to see what that actually looks like. But for the sake of today, pick any of your grade levels. If you have a student in any of these grade levels, you can just open it up, go to the grade level. For the sake of today, I'm actually not going to look at that one. I'm going to go to grade 7. I'm going to open up module 1. And for the sake of the community, this is typically, obviously these are in print, but for the review, you can actually take an actual look, if you will, at our student edition. And this is what the cover looks like. So we always have typically an image or a photo, a piece of art, maybe a connection to historical science or something, but there's always a lesson about this. So trying to make that connection, the real world for the student, or even like, where did the mathematics come from? You know, like I remember teaching, or even when I was a student, it's like, where did the symbol X come from? Who made that up? So students always are asking that question. They want to know, where did the mathematics come from? So you'll always see that even on our front cover. As you open the actual student edition, you will see right front and center here to the left is what we call the talking tool. And as a teacher, Carrie and I were talking about this in the classroom, there was always that a lot of times students, I always found that students actually learn really well from each other in hearing that conversation around the mathematics, how somebody else solved the problem. For me, it really hit me really hard when I got to advanced mathematics, and I was like, okay, the teacher would spend a couple of minutes up on a couple of problems, but then, you know, we weren't really allowed back in the day to really have that conversation. When I realized quickly, it's like, then I became a teacher, it's like, allow students to explain their thinking. Sometimes students can learn it really well from their peers, but we have to be able to provide a support to allow that to happen in the classroom. And this is called our talking tool. So sometimes it's like, as a teacher, you'll ask your students, okay, go ahead and turn and talk. But sometimes, even in middle school, particularly, I found students don't know where to start that conversation. So we have to provide them some tools, I call them like lesson starters or question starters, if you will, to get the conversation going. And so this is built in at the front of the book. It's also in color at the back of the student edition. So this is highly supportive for all of our students. We want the students are in with Eureka Math Squared, they're going to own that learning. The learning is going to come from them. Now, as I flip over here, you'll notice there are 6 modules at all of our grade levels. And so at this particular module, look at ratio and proportions, the relationship. There are then it's broken down what we call topics, and then associated lessons, if you will. So there are about anywhere, depending on the grade level, plus or minus, about 140 lessons, give or take. Now, you're probably thinking there's 180-day school year, so what about the rest? Well, we need to leave space for the teacher to help our students with responsive teaching, assessment. We have a diagnostic tool as well built in that can help students with the foundational skills that they might need if we're in it, but it's at the point of use and when the student actually needs it. And so that's called equip, but I won't really get into that. But just know that that part of the lesson is built in. And then of course you have mixed problems, mixed practice here, and fluency practice as well. Every one of the topics begins, I kind of giggle at this a little bit, but we open all of our topics with what we call a topic opener, that they use humor. It's another way to engage our students at middle school. If anybody, obviously everybody on this call probably has a middle schooler, at least most of us, and we want to engage something humorous. And most of the students, at first, I believe it or not, I didn't get some of these, but then I was talking to a middle schooler, it's like, yeah, I totally get it. They're laughing like crazy about this, but it's just a way to engage the students with the math and using humor to do that as well. Our lessons always begin with would just be a page with classwork. Notice the space that we're given. So the teacher would have in their teacher edition, there would be guiding and some kind of experiment with ratios and rates here. One of the things that was built in fundamentally at the core was the use of what we call UDL, the Universal Design for Learning. So we're trying to give students that opportunity for multiple ways to engage the lesson, multiple what we call entry points. Here's your exit ticket that we talked about, that key feature where we want to know, for me as a teacher, before you left that day, it's my opportunity to gain some data on. I want to see, did all of my class get that? And if they didn't, and they're sharing out in our LAN, what we call it LAN part of the lesson, what the students are discussing, I have some data to collect right away, and I can help the student before it becomes a permanent, I call it a permanent fixture with them, the learning. So we can help them, maybe they're making an error, I can catch it right away. And that's called our exit ticket. Recap. So I'm going to show you, you could be able to download a recap in a little bit, but the recap I usually like to ask people, what do you notice about the recap? But for the sake of time here on the screen, you will notice, obviously I have you with me with the classwork. So that first part of the lesson is going to have the classwork, but then there's this recap that happens. And what happens when that student goes home and they don't have Mr. K there? I need to provide some kind of model. What does it actually look like? So you'll see the stepped out solutions. You'll see the answer. This is the student's version here. They're looking right at it. Mr. K's not here, but I can still see the stepped out solution. What does it look like? And then after that, so I have that tool I can look back at. Now I'm ready to practice some of these problems independently. And then it goes on, and then we start, obviously. And then I will point out there is a remembering part here. You'll see over here. Just kind of highlight this is really important. That is our mixed practice. We have to keep those skills fresh for the students, and we layer that in almost all of our lessons. So it's going to have this cumulative effect. We got to keep. I know you look at the problem like 4 times 1, 1/7, but to keep those skills fresh, it'll help when students start to become and apply their math to the application problems. And then, of course, here we are on to the next set already in the next lesson. And this was, check out the other grades. They're probably a little bit more developed with the class work itself. Carrie, do you have anything to add to this as well before we move on to this?
No, I think that covers it pretty well. Essentially, there's going to be a balance of class work that's done together with your student's teacher, and additionally some extra practice for outside of that class. But then you're also going to have those supports in place to help bridge the work from that you're doing with the teacher by your side to the work that you are doing outside of the classroom as well.
Another opportunity for you to, if you want to take a close look, if you don't want to flip through the student edition, I would encourage you to download these grade 6 and grade 7 or grade 8 samplers. These have the practice problems on here for each of the mixed. And they include the mixed practice of related skills, but this is where we're help deepening that conceptual understanding, the procedural skills, that fluency. We need students to be able to help with automaticity, so that when a student encounters like an application problem, that fluency will help the student with access to the actual on grade level content. So that's built in. So there's daily in the lessons built in fluency. It's also structured in 2 pages. Just trying to think of what else I could say about this, but bottom line, this is in the Learn book. And then I want to get on to another exciting thing you can download too is please download the recap, if you will. Check out the example here, one of the pages, what it looks like, the support that is for the students. And I would argue not just the students, but us as parents. Sometimes you ever had your student come home to you and there's like, I don't get this. And sometimes I didn't know how to help my student. Maybe I wasn't taught that way. Having these examples with the recaps are extremely powerful. We get a lot of feedback from parents and actually students about this particular part. All right, student digital platform. So you have the print edition, if you will, and I kind of held that up for you, but you have that and you can get into the modules here, but there is what we call a parallel resource. So everything you'll see in print, you will also see in digital. And so we have the login for you if you want to access the materials. What I would do is just click on this to access the online student materials. You'll come to a page that looks like this. It says login with the email. Okay, and sorry, I have my ELA on there from a different presentation. It's just easy to copy and paste, if you will. Kind of showing you here, so I'll kind of continue to talk here. Put in the email, copy and paste it in, and then of course take your password here. Go ahead and put that in. Then you will come to hopefully what we call the home page for the student. Yay, it did work. That's good. My internet connection's good tonight. So here's our home page. You'll notice it says the to-do, and this is where the student has been assigned classwork. So the teacher kind of has control of this and can assign your quizzes, We'll have different versions of it. Maybe they missed a day, so we can give them version 2. Your topic openers, any of your classwork, all that can be assigned to the students. They can complete the work. I'll freely open up any of these, and you'll see I'll just choose classwork for the sake of this. But you're going to be your student will have some tools here to be able to write in. If I go in here and write, I can freely, doesn't matter. You can add text or draw or whatever, and then apply it. And the student could write in here whatever they want to do. They answer the problem. I'm trying to think about anything else I could show you. I'm gonna go back here for a second. Topic openers. This is, the locker. So again, I talked about kind of that we have this tool. It's a diagnostic tool. We call it Equip. Over here, you will see normally, for the sake of this was a demo, so we didn't put any data in here, but this is where you would see, a student would see their previously scored materials or any of the activities. They could see how they did on their assessments and feedback from the teacher. That's all related in the tool. The other part I do like is this tool down here. We get a lot of feedback about this. If you click in here, this goes to our virtual manipulatives by DEDAC. So students, if I need extra support with manipulatives, virtual manipulatives, I can click on these and it'll help me with the mathematics itself. Carrie, do you have any additional items to add to this?
No, I think you hit on most of them. Essentially, the students are able to see exactly what the teachers want them to see. They have access to their own data, and therefore they have ownership of it. And I love the fact that we go beyond whether something is right or wrong. We give them feedback regarding some next steps that they can take. And again, they have access to that at any point. And I love that this just kind of puts students in control of their learning, and they can access it from anywhere. So if students are there in the classroom, they may be using their paper and pencil version, they may be using their devices, but then at home, they have the same 2 options as well. So it really, again, makes it so that students are kind of in the driver's seat with their own learning.
All right. I want to talk to you a little bit about really, like I mentioned earlier, how the mathematics, the conceptual development is extremely important to us, laying that strong foundation for mathematics. I have like my own personal example. My brother was did work for the Boeing company in engineering, and one of the things I noticed, he was really good at, I think his deeper understanding of the mathematics influenced his ability to be an engineer and all that. So I don't know about you, but I was probably one of those really good memorizers. But a person can only memorize, I found, so much. Even going through the whole calculus series, I remember this, and my grades looked really good if you look at my report card, but I can tell you right now, I probably didn't understand the mathematics to the knowledge that I needed to have it. When somebody would ask me to design, whatever it was, an engineering type problem, I wasn't able to do that. And I think that's really important for us when we talk about equity and we talk about, helping students open up that world for different options in their careers. So we lay a strong foundation for the mathematics, the deep understanding of the math. And that starts with some of the way we look at our problems. And so there's a little video, I'm probably not, I don't know how much time. What do you think, Carrie? Do we have time here to show that a little bit?
Sorry, it takes me a second to find my mute button.
I want to be respectful of time for everybody.
It's a really interesting video, and it made me a believer myself when I first came to Eureka Math. It's like, why are we using this? This looks so different. I would recommend really watching it and kind of stopping to pause and think about what he's saying. Because it really, like I said, it was a huge turning point for me in understanding the why. Why does math look different than it did when I grew up? And it made a lot more sense when I watched this video. And he's one of our lead mathematicians that helped write the entire curriculum. So he's got a lot of he's got a good depth of mathematical knowledge.
So yeah, and I like this visual really starting in the earliest grades, and it lays the foundation early on with number bonds. And I was thinking about this as a math teacher. It's like, laying that the 10 and the 4 make 14, the groups of 10. But this is really, you're laying the foundation, believe it or not, even at an early age for algebra. And so I call this Velcro. If we can develop, that's not too hard to imagine putting in, instead of the 4 here, an X, so an unknown. It just helps the students set them up for later on in the mathematics when the students encounter something, maybe, especially we find it in the application problems, when students can represent a problem with an equation. If you lay this conceptual development at early age, it'll make that math and application problems more accessible for them. You'll see the groupings here. So the students understanding that 98 and 2, making 100, 15, and then 17 is broken down into 15 to 2. You know, I don't even know, Karen and I are talking about this at early age. I don't even know if I really paid attention. Again, I was one of those memorizers. I didn't, you know, not even thinking about breaking apart the numbers, let alone the connection to algebra. This is one of my favorite things, actually, is the whole concept with fractions and all that. What does that look like? This shows up later in the mathematics, laying that nice foundation. What does it actually mean? 9/3, third, and then that's really 10/3. So I kind of let that sink in for a moment, just about the mathematics. Scrolling down a little bit, if you want to know more, on this page, we do offer card games, if you will. I think we get a lot of feedback about, you know, how can I support, what else can I do to support my student at home? And part of that is the card games. You can download, these are free. Carrie, when you talk about card games with people, you want to highlight that a little bit, discuss what that really, how it helps or can be supportive of students?
Yeah, so there's some great games in there that can be used at all different levels with, you know, just as simple as a deck of cards at home. But it really is promoting that that fluency that we want students to be able to build. Like Michael mentioned, it's not about memorizing math facts. It's about being able to work with them from memory. And that's an important distinction, that the more that I play around with these numbers, the more they become automatic to me. And it's just like when I'm reading a book, if I'm stumbling over every single letter and trying to sound out every word, I'm losing the bigger meaning. Well, we find the same to be true with math as well. The more we develop that fluency and that confidence in our students, the more that we're going to see that they're going to be able to access those bigger concepts in math, that we don't want the smaller building blocks to get in the way of. So again, it's not about memorization. It's not about flashcards. It's about playing games and really digging in and making sense of the math and having ownership of that math.
A couple other topics I think we just wanted to feature here was how we look at supporting multilingual learners. And it comes out in the math classroom with Eureka Math Squared. The conversation, if you're walking in, the teacher's doing all the talking, you're probably not in a Eureka Math Squared classroom. We like the students, that learning to come from the students, that discussion to have, that rich discussion. It helps all learners. So we have these natural supports. We use what we call instructional routines in our resources. So when a teacher's teaching the class, there are approximately 9 of them, and those are embedded in our lessons, and students might ask to be turning and talking, what doesn't belong, types of problems that help facilitate discussion with students. And then of course, we're always going to talk about that in all of our resources, including math, but why Eureka Math Squared? And really, like Carrie was talking about, the why behind the math, not just the how. Check that out, read that article about it, how we think about it. It's extremely important that we lay that foundation, that a student understands the why and not just the how. Like, again, not from my own previous experience, it's just not memorizing it, but no, you know, because I could do and write the equation, I look really good, but somebody asked, well, how did you know that? And why did you do that? I couldn't answer it. So we want to be able to help all of our students so we can open up our opportunities in the future for them. So I think that's about really, I know I'm almost my 20 minutes here, I believe. I want to be respectful of 20 minutes.
Yeah, we have, for the full session, we have about 6 more minutes if there's any questions or if you have more you want to share. So maybe we'll pause for a moment just to see if there's any questions from our attendees. do not see anything, but again, if you have a question, you can use the Q&A feature down below on your screen. And then Michael, is there anything else that you or Carrie would like to share?
Yeah, I will say, in support of teachers, Carrie, can you talk about just professional development? I think this is professional development. I know it's, it's going to help the teachers support. So there's a lot of support. We've been talking a lot about how that classroom looks like in a Eureka Math, where the students, the discourse, we call it, and where students are talking, but there takes professional development to make that happen. And so one of the things that you'll know about great minds in general is that almost 90% of us are former educators. So the teachers, they write the content, the lessons themselves. So they're understanding, what does this look like in the classroom? Let's be able to test this. Let's make sure it works. Let's get feedback. We're constantly welcome and open to feedback from community, including parents. What else can we do to support you? So Carrie kind of talks about that PD. We roll it out with the district of professional development, and we try to support the district in the best way we can, to even like the curriculum nights. So like if you're going to come in as a parent, we'll talk to the district about how, because for some people this is a change. Maybe I didn't learn this way. So and we got to help the teachers also help you as the parents understand. So we're going to layer this in we usually like to roll out a 2 or 3 year plan to support the district. So I probably talked too much there. Go ahead, Carrie. I know she's ready to talk. Sorry.
No, I was just going to add to that we really recognize that there's a partnership here between our curriculum and the teachers and the district and the community. And so we'll be working really closely with all of the above to make sure that all of our students are feeling supported and feeling successful in math. So yes, we come in and we work with the teachers, and we'll do trainings along with them, but then we're also going to continue to support them as we move forward. So we want to let you know that you'll have a voice in that as well. So as you're voicing feedback, you're voicing questions to the teachers, just know that we are there to support them with those as well. So we do really value our partnerships with communities.
I think anything else? Anybody have any questions?
I think I do see one. Will this webinar recording be available for me to see? I missed half of it. And yes, it will be available. We will put it on our website. So if you missed the first presentation, you will be able to go back and rewatch it or share it with other people who were not able to be here this evening. And then the second question is, when will implementation happen once a curriculum is chosen? And these materials that we're looking at right now are for implementation at the start of the next school year. So they will begin being used in September of 2023. And then they will be in our classrooms for the next 7 years until the next cycle comes through. And the final question, this method is used in the charter school to what I can see, and I really enjoyed that teaching method and something different. That was a comment. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's helpful for us to know.
Yeah, the feedback we get, one of the things we hear from parents and students, that the joy of learning mathematics itself, that building that confidence when you develop that conceptual understanding simultaneously with the fluency, students feel empowered regardless of where they come, where they came from and all that. We want to build that knowledge, provide opportunities for them for the future. We see, again, not just college, but also, career readiness itself, maybe the trades, whatever the student chooses. We just want to arm them with the tools to be able to do that and the confidence to do that. And part of that is, developing the understanding of the deep why behind the math. And so we also, that's part of our PD, by the way, with the teachers themselves, not just about how to teach the materials or utilize materials, but we call this educative in nature. So it's, for me as a teacher, it's like, why did we teach that the way we did? And so in the teacher's view of this, you saw the student tonight, but in the teacher's view is a very deep conceptual understanding for the teacher to have knowledge of the math itself. And why do we teach it the way we do? there's intentionality to everything we do. So anyway.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you, Carrie. That puts us right at time. That's perfect timing. So with that, I am going to turn it over and we will continue on next steps. But again, I want to thank all of our publishers for being here this evening and sharing about your programs. Have a good evening. And our community, please stay on. We have just a couple more things for you.
Wonderful. Michael, I'm going to take that screen back in just a moment here. Thank you so much.
You got it? Yeah. Oh, stop sharing. Yep. There we go.
Perfect. All right. As Brooke alluded, we have just the last few next steps, and we'll stay on for a few questions if you have them, community members. I know there are some things that maybe us David Douglas representatives might be able to help you answer. So just as a reminder, earlier we outlined where you can find access to more information, more exploratory resources for both Eureka Math Squared and iReady. In addition, where you'll find the community input survey. Remember, this is only a 3 to 5 minute survey. It was intentionally created to be easy for you all to complete on busy schedules, and your feedback will be really imperative to helping us with our decision-making process. I wanted to let you know what's coming next. So during the months of February and March, started just this week actually, select teachers and students are actually experiencing Great Minds, the Eureka Math Squared program. And then in March, they'll be experiencing iReady in our piloting phase. This allows our teachers and our students to really have a robust experience and understand the different features of both programs. We'll use their input and review all the data along with any community input to help us, because in April, we'll be making our final board recommendation, and this will allow our school board to make a move to approve the recommended program that we suggest. Whatever program is adopted, we will make sure that teachers are supported with that professional learning, and materials and lessons will begin in September of 2023, just like Brooke mentioned a few moments ago. We are really excited for what's on the horizon within mathematics, and we thank you so much for your time tonight. If you do have some questions for us, we invite you to ask them now using that Q&A feature. We'll wait around for a few more minutes here. If you have questions, we're looking forward to reading them and responding in the chat. If not, thank you so much for coming tonight. And we'll have a high school version of this same meeting happening on February 28th. If you have 8th graders currently, we invite you to come to February 28th session to learn about the high school math curriculum that is being proposed. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.